Hi friends, my name is Trish Roberts and you're watching Faint Signals from Vega. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of research that I saw from the Pew Research Center. It's an international non-partisan group and they do international surveys. And they surveyed 22 countries about various issues, and the top issue was climate change. The top concern in these 22 countries of various people that they surveyed was climate change. There was also concern about cybersecurity and ISIS. Fortunately, the top one was climate change, because a lot of what's gone on with cybersecurity has been a whole lot of scaremongering. And if you've seen, I mean, that's been going on for a long time. All countries do spying on one another. But this whole Russiagate thing, which, by the way, the Senate has found there's no collusion between Russia and Trump in relation to Russia, which most of us kind of knew, because that was all sort of brought up when the Hillary Clinton campaign, the Podesta emails were released, and it implicated Hillary Clinton in a whole lot of stuff, and then all of a sudden, Russia. Anyway, you know, the cybersecurity thing, I don't really see that as such a terrible thing, but anyway, the climate change definitely. But then the other thing that was most notable was out of these 22 countries, a lot of people, that was another major thing, that they saw the US and its influence and power as a major threat to their country's security. And that has gone up from 22% in 2013 to I think 32%, something like that, in 2017. And in spring 2018, when this Pew research was conducted, it was then, 46%. So it's sort of going up and up and up. And it also indicated Japan and South Korea, particularly Japan, find the US is a major threat to their security. So I'm glad to see that countries are waking up to, or people rather, must be ignoring to some degree the mainstream media and actually looking at independent news, or you know, at least Russia RT, you know, Russia TV, which has a lot of independent journalists from the US on it, who are presenting the real picture of what's going on. So you know, it's good that so many people in these 22 countries see the US as a major threat, and Russia was way down. They didn't find that a problem at all, even in my own country. Although in Australia, I don't think they see the US as a threat. In the US, it seemed like, well, I don't know if they asked that question, but a lot of people saw Russia as a threat, which I thought was a bit sad. It was about 50%, which is half and half, which is kind of sad, that it looks like they've drunk the Kool-Aid. And Poland saw Russia as a threat, but then Poland has this long kind of strange history about Russia. But most people saw the United States as a major threat. That's that. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you is some thoughts about Venezuela that I had read and watched some different news segments. And I just saw one which was an interview with Shamini Perez and interviewing the actor Danny Glover, who is a very strong and long-term left activist. Who would have thought? I mean, most celebrities are kind of completely clueless and all sort of think the Democratic Party is fabulous. So it's great to see at least one celebrity who is sort of been an activist for a very long time, and he was a friend of Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, for a few years, and he was asked, you know, when you hear people saying that Maduro is a dictator, you always hear those two words put together. What's your thoughts on that? And he's had a long history with Venezuela. He's been there a lot. And he sort of said, well, Hugo Chavez wasn't a dictator, and neither is Maduro. He hasn't, you know, he doesn't think there's any signs of that from Maduro. So that's interesting. And I mean, you know, I don't believe, you know, it's just a slur really and a smear that people say he's a dictator. And, you know, he's done some things wrong, like George Galloway was saying in a, George Galloway, you know, loves Venezuela. He loves the Bolivarian Revolution. He wants everything to turn out for Venezuela, for Maduro. And you know, he said, though, that, he said this interesting thing, which I didn't realize. He said that France has more of a socialist country in some ways than Venezuela, in that France has more state-owned assets, state-owned sort of companies, etc., than Venezuela does. Even though Venezuela is a socialist government, Venezuela has a lot of their assets and companies, etc. Like maybe it's not assets, I should call them, but the companies are privately owned, and so they can hold the country to ransom if they wish, which they have when it comes to various products. You know, they were withholding them from Venezuela, sort of working in tandem with the US to try and cripple Venezuela, and till they can eventually do a coup. So anyway, that was an interesting thing by George Galloway about Venezuela, and it's how France is more socialist in many ways than it is. And of course France is in a complete mess. You don't see anybody threatening to invade France because they're in complete disarray. The Yellow Vest movement is you know, out in the streets protesting the dreadful neoliberalism and austerity, and it's a real mess there, but you don't see anybody trying to step in for the French people and declare a new president, you know, of France. No, because France doesn't have any oil, and it doesn't have lots of gold like Venezuela has, and so forth. Canada has been fully behind this coup, this US-backed coup, because even though they're not interested so much in the oil like the US is, because Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on earth, but Canada is interested in the gold and in bauxite, mainly the gold, but bauxite and some other minerals, and because Venezuela has a lot of gold. And Maduro has said, you know, if these countries, these Western countries, are so concerned about the Venezuelan people, and he's rejected the so-called quote-unquote humanitarian aid that is being offered by the US and by Colombia and one other country, I'm not sure, is it Canada? He said if these countries, these governments, if Washington was so concerned, and the UK, that the UK should hand over the gold that is Venezuela, like they're holding ransom $1 billion worth of gold. And so are some other countries. They're withholding Venezuelan gold and, you know, and money, you know. So basically they're withholding billions of dollars from Venezuela that they could be using right now. So this is the sort of, they're all working in tandem to cripple, and the economic sanctions, of course, have been crippling Venezuela for a long time now. And this has all been part of a plan to eventually, and they've been grooming Guaido, Juan Guaido, for a long time to step in and take over. And but one interesting thing which I saw on Venezuela Analysis, which is a very great it's an excellent publication from Venezuela, and it's supposed to be quite independent, and meaning it's presenting factual information. And Venezuela Analysis wrote this essay about how really there doesn't seem to be much internal support for Juan Guaido. In fact, it's very calm there in many ways. And of course, there's been, tens of thousands of people coming out and signing, Chavistas signing petitions for, to stop, to ask, can other countries please stop intervening in this, in their country. But this essay by Venezuela Analysis basically said that there's a sort of an extraordinary calm in some ways in Venezuela. Now that can change from day to day, but at the present time that's apparently how it is. And so the author of this essay basically does not thinks that because Juan Guaido really has very little support from within, and really really no support from the military in Venezuela, that he's going to require a military intervention by the US to actually be able to take over that country, because there really isn't there's barely any support except from, say, people who are wealthy in that country and who want the country to be privatized completely and be able to gain in some ways financially from the US invading and taking over the oil, etc. And Bolton has actually, in public, said all the corporations, the US corporations, are interested in that oil, and they don't even hide it anymore that they want that country, and they want the resources, the oil. They don't even care anymore if people know what they're about.
We're in conversation with major American companies now that are either in Venezuela or, in the case of Citgo, here in the United States. I think we're trying to get to the same end result here. Venezuela is one of the three countries I call the troika of tyranny. It'll make a big difference to the United States economically if we could have American oil companies really invest in and produce the oil capabilities in Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of the United States. We both have a lot at stake here, making this come out the right way.
So that, the mask is almost completely off with this Trump administration and with the kind of, excuse me for using this word, but the kind of nutters that he's put into these positions, like Pompeo, who believes in the rapture, and John Bolton, who is just so far fringe. They didn't want him in the George Bush administration, I think. I mean, he's such a, from what I understand anyway. I saw him on Fox News a number of times, and I used to think, oh my God, this guy is such a lunatic. I was thinking he's even too crazy for Fox News. He's sort of, I'm sorry, I don't mean to use ableist things, but I can't think of another word. He's just so sort of scary, and so is Pompeo. So anyway, you only have to look at their Twitter feed to see that they're either deluded or just pathological liars. I'd say they're a bit of both. So anyway, occasionally I troll Pompeo just because, and on Twitter, and the same with Bolton, and I invite you to do the same, because they're so full of lies and propaganda. They deserve to be trolled hard. So anyway, so Venezuela Analysis, they said, unfortunately, because there is no real support for Juan Guaido, this self-proclaimed unelected president, that it is likely that the US will invade. And I'm only hoping, I know that Russia and Putin has pledged support, as has China and a few other countries. I understand that Putin has basically said, has sent a couple of very high-tech nuclear capable jets to Venezuela, and I think that they would possibly get militarily involved as well if the US invaded Venezuela, which would mean it's like another Syria, really, and that would be so much more bloodier than the Syrian situation. And there would be a lot of people involved. It would be, like Maduro said, it would be like another Vietnam. And I think that would be the case in the sort of the bloodiness and the mess. So let us hope that maybe just the threat of Russia becoming involved militarily will be enough to dissuade the US from becoming involved. That's all I think we can hope for. It's really down to that now, the major powers, and if they can dissuade each other from, well, it's really Russia dissuading a crazy empire, US empire, from doing insane things on the planet. You know, as I've said before, William Bloom, the historian, said, it's really simple. The US wants world domination, and it's very plain if you follow things. It's very plain that's the case. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about. So thanks so much for watching. Hit the like button if you like this content. Please subscribe and click the notifications bell, otherwise you don't receive updates. And please leave comments. I always welcome your comments as long as they're civil. And so thanks so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time, bye for now.
But what about if we look at the international law, the Charter? Where is this based on? Are we simply setting aside international relations based on international law and replacing them with international relations based on force?
China supports the efforts made by the Venezuelan government to uphold national sovereignty, independence, and stability.
The meeting, which we are being forced to be present, is another element of the strategy of the United States to effect regime change in Venezuela. We regret that in its unethical ploys, the United States is involving the Security Council.
The main threat to peace and security in Latin America and the Caribbean is, in fact, the bullying by the United States and its allies of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, which is a flagrant affront to the popular will of the people of Venezuela and to the institutional framework of this country. I ask the question honestly, if we look back through history, which country has been better after an intervention by the United States of America? Have we not discussed in this very Security Council the serious adverse impact and consequences of situations such as the current situation in Iraq or Syria or in Libya?